Sorry.
Oh, no, you were
Violated
fine.
over 6 feet of. All right. I think we're just about there. I've started the recording. We got 21 folks online, which is great. We got 6 folks live here and in person. So that takes us pretty close to what we should expect. We might have a student or two absent. In just a moment, I'm going to share my screen as usual, talk to you a little bit about the agenda that we have for today, and then we'll get into it. So here we go. Okay, so share my screen real quick. And fantastic. Okay, our agenda for today is incomplete. Apparently, I got most of the way finished with the agenda, and then I got distracted by email. But we're going to take a quick little quiz over the podcast. I'm budgeting about 15 minutes for this. It's 4 questions, and I'll talk to you about the 4 questions in just a moment. I'm sure everyone is going to do great, so you don't need to stress about it. Then, when you come back, I want to show you the class's political positions like we've talked. Oh, sorry. First, when we come back, we'll talk about the podcast and your thoughts on it. Talk a little bit about the class's political composition. I want to talk about Dylan's question, or at least the comment Dylan made last class that prompted this question about the young and the liberal and the old and the conservative. And if we think that statement is true, that dichotomy is true. And that'll probably take us to the end of our time together today. So the last bullet point was just like, peace out. Have a great weekend. Okay, so let's talk about the podcast quiz a little bit. If you go into Canvas, you should see a quiz in there that says like Powerball Revolution. It's going to have a secret code that you're going to need to get in there. And I'll tell you what the secret code is in just a moment. But first, a word about the quiz. There are 4 questions, just 4 questions. They're open answers. Okay, the first 2 probably aren't going to take you very long to answer at all. Maybe just a couple of few sentences. They're pretty much just like, what was the point of the podcast kind of questions. The second 2 questions are opinion questions. Those don't really have a right or wrong answer. They just ask you your thoughts and opinions on the podcast. Those you might wind up writing a little bit more if you have strong opinions about what you were thinking about as a result of listening to the podcast, or they might be a little shorter if you didn't really find it that interesting or whatever. So again, like grand total, maybe about 15 minutes on this, okay? So don't feel like you have to write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs for these questions. Folks that are online, this is my first time doing this, like doing a little quiz thing with folks in the room and folks online. So folks online, in just a moment, if you wanna mute your screen and mute your volume so that you can just be in your own space while you write, I'm totally cool with that if you're online. Folks that are here in the room, in just a moment, if you guys want to go outside where the weather is beautiful for a few minutes to write your answers to the quiz, you're certainly more than welcome to, or you can stay here in the room. Either one's fine with me. So right now we're at about 11 till or 10 till. Around 2:05, I'd like those of you that are in the digital world to come back to us. Those of you that are in the classroom, if you do decide to go outside for a few minutes, again, in about 15 minutes, come on back in. Make sense? Okay, cool. All right, so the secret code is LOTTO, L-O-T-T-O, like the Powerball. So L-O-T-T-O, LOTTO is our secret code to allow you access. I'm going to stop. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a quick question. So if we did happen to take notes, is it all right if we look at those for like those first 2 questions?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I don't think you're going to need the notes for them, but if you have them, yeah, it's totally cool.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, all good. Okay, cool. So those of you in the digital world, feel free to leave your camera on if you want, but if you want to disappear for a few minutes, just come on back about 2:05. Folks, you guys can stay here, or do you want to go wander? Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, go for it. Just, stay socially distanced out there and, don't get any mysterious white vans with strangers. All All right, well, we give the last few folks just a minute or two to wrap up and get theirs submitted. I'd love to start like just a general conversation about, what did you think about the arguments that Adam was making, or that Malcolm was making about Adam's arguments? We'll start here in person and go with Isaac. Isaac, what do you think?
Yes, I find them quite humorous when I think about them. Like, we aren't good at predicting at all what circumstances like an election would be, or how good of a student would be in answering colleges.
Yeah, that part about college admissions, I think, hit a lot of people right in the gut, right? Anyone online, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us about the podcast? What did you think of the merits of Adam's argument, or the arguments that, Claire, jump in. Go for it, Claire. Or are you frozen? She might be frozen. Sorry, Claire. Okay, Sophie, what do you think?
I thought it was interesting, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's like a logical possible option once you move past like I think in a school, I think it's a really interesting and possibly like you could implement it, but I think once you get to a public office, like it becomes a little bit of a problem. Either because you need some qualifications theoretically to even be eligible if you think about it. Else you could literally just have any random person off the street. Like a country would go like to chaos. Like I think at some point, as more is at stake with that office, it becomes more difficult to think of the idea of randomly selecting a person. Especially like our country is so built on being a democratic republic and electing people. I think especially it'd be a hard switch to be like, you have no say in who is ruling. You have no say over their morals, their values, what laws they're going to make. It was just chance. Like, I don't think people are going to respond well to that.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I want to refine that thought and say I think you're right. Like if we had like a purely random lottery and some 12-year-old is like, I want to run the country, and we wind up picking them, and they're like, Taco Tuesday every day. That probably wouldn't be a great. Claire, I want to get your thoughts, and Lee from the virtual world. Claire, kick it off.
So I agree with Sophie about a lot of things, but I think the idea of a lottery. Is my Wi-Fi being weird? Can you hear me? Wait.
Yeah, the visual is, but we can hear you just fine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it could definitely be implemented if on like a local level or a smaller level, like areas where there's multiple people discussing, like maybe even like in a school board or a committee. I think it could be implemented if there was like some set of qualifications as like a starter for people who are like being chosen from. Because I think in that situation, like there's more checks to your power, like it's about discussion, it'd be more the will of the people. But I think it's definitely dangerous when it comes to positions like being a senator or a president, because you're just holding so much power. The idea that it's all up to chance is just really dangerous, I think.
Okay, so let me address Sophie and Claire's concerns, and then Lee will come to you in just a second. Thanks for your patience. What if we did have some kind of, like the NIH might do, what if we had some kind of initial process where we rule out like the weak candidates? So like, let's say just hypothetically for an example, let's say that the president is chosen at random from Congress. There are 538 senators and Congress people, and we put their name, anyone that wants to be president, maybe they don't all want to, but let's say 150 of them do. We put their names in a hat and we draw their names. They've gone through an election, they've been vetted by their constituency, or maybe we could have each state nominate one person that they think should be president, and we put those 50 names in a hat and we pull one randomly. Lee, you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but I just wanted to say maybe we could address Claire and Sophie's concerns like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I was mostly like in agreement with what they said. I don't think that's like a logical thing to do. But in regards to like choosing a senator or anything like that, I still don't think it's a good idea, like even if we have qualifications, because there's a lot of people who are very biased, but it's a hidden thing. And if we were to elect somebody with a very strong bias against a certain demographic, it could be very dangerous for like the fate of the country. So I just don't think it's a good idea for like anything that has an effect on the country to be run like that.
Okay, but you would think it might be okay. What about like junior class council?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay, all right, so there's not enough at stake at junior class council, like the prom theme or something, I guess, would be like, the highest stakes. I don't mean to bash the junior class council, but like, obviously they're not in control of like the nuclear launch codes. Or are they? They're not, are they, Ritesh?
They could be.
They could, oh God, dear God, Ritesh says they could be. Okay, let's go in person here with Ritesh and Isaac, and then I want to go back online and get John and Abby.
Well, I agree with what everyone said before me so far mostly, but I was very intrigued by his ideas. So I like the process he said where we like narrow down the candidates. I would take the risk personally to see what would happen, because I feel like it could go both ways. I feel like it'd be a very like, even if we end up in absolute terror, I feel like we could learn a lot from the experience, and it would be very beneficial for the country or a council or whatever.
Can you guys online hear what Ritesh just said?
You want us to stop?
Yeah, so I get a thumbs up. Okay, so Ritesh is a gambler, right? He's definitely a gambling man. He's like, let's roll the dice, baby. And his direct quote, even if it ends in terror, like we will at least have learned something. You're such a glass half full. I love that, Ritesh. That's awesome. Isaac, your thoughts?
So, just a question on what our government could be. What if we expanded the executive branch, like the number of people who can be, like instead of just having one president, there would be multiple people, like 6, and then we would randomly choose like people at a certain like education level or maybe even a political level, or less of that, since I think it would be much more inclusive of different ideas.
So it's like a committee of presidents.
Yeah, so like keep in mind that the podcast talked about how multiple people who won't consider running for like a specific council position in their schools if they had a campaign about it, but they still want to do it as well, and that random like system helps them have a bit more courage in actually running, because they don't have to. They don't have to like like this 7-foot form to actually do well. It's just like what they were drawing.
Yeah. So what about Adam's idea that Isaac is like amplifying here? That there are a lot of people that would love to serve in office and would be great at serving in office. They just don't want to run for office. Like think about, I just saw on NPR, it's estimated that just the 2 presidential campaigns cost about $3 trillion. $3 billion for the 2 presidential campaigns. Think about all that money that was pumped into that. If we had a lottery, right, hypothetically, we wouldn't need to spend all that money on campaigns, right? It would lower the barriers to entry. We could get all kinds of people. John and Abby, what are your thoughts?
I actually think that the lottery system at any level is morally corrupt, because first off, whether it introduces, whether we like it or not, it's going to introduce people who may not be suited for the office. And even though you already said, like, what if we had cleared everyone out? Why didn't we just do that in the first place with like a voting system? Because clearing everyone out, what process would we be using to clear everyone out with? Would that be through a proper vote, or would that be through a lottery system, as we had been discussing now? So what process would we use to do that? And then to further my point, it's psychologically negligent on the people who are trying to get into offices by proper means, because even with a student council, if take for say someone who wanted to be a student council president, if they had been studying to make sure that they have like a 5.0 GPA and think that they want to try and take on the challenge of being a student council president, thinking that it's a responsibility that they want to have like on their like resume, or I don't know, and then they just happen to lose the lottery, what if that's going to impact them psychologically, saying, well, maybe I can't do that. I can't do anything in life that's going to be like a leadership position. So then further down the line, they don't pursue anything great like that. So I think it's morally negligent to just leave everything up to chance.
Okay, John, let me respond to your critiques with some questions. So first of all, do you agree with Adam's point that when we eliminate people through standard elections, you're really only going to get the kind of people running that are good public speakers, that are outgoing people, that like to hear themselves talk, that, you know, and then you might have a lot of people that are just introverts or are quiet, that are deep thinkers, that are good at listening, but they're just not into running for office. And so we're eliminating a whole group of people. Take a look at the diversity of our presidents. Take a look at the diversity of our legislature, right? Largely male, largely white. That's probably not random, right? And our elections have generated that. What do you think about that, John? While he thinks, Abby, jump in there. What are your thoughts, Abby?
Well, I think that with the lottery system, well, first of all, I think it should be it starts with everyone that wants to be it, but then, you'll be eliminated out of it if you have anything, they'll do a background check, and if you have rape allegations, then you're just out of it, because there are plenty of people who don't, or all this different stuff. And I think it'd be good if they had a degree, a college degree in political sciences or something, because that's what really matters. And I don't think they necessarily have to be a good public speaker. I know the job has become a very popular one, and I think it would be a helpful trait to have. But I also think that the campaign process is something that would be eliminated with the lottery, and that would be for the better, because it's a waste of money, and you either will be good at being president or you won't, and the campaign process is just whether or not you can convince people that you will be, or manipulate people into thinking you will be. And I think it's more about just the facts of whether or not you are good at your job.
Abby, would you apply this to college admissions as well, as you begin to prepare thinking about college and university admissions? Do you feel the same way about this lottery system? The university would basically eliminate people that weren't generally qualified, right? So students that hadn't graduated from high school or didn't have a minimum GPA, whatever their requirements are. And then what's left over in that pool, they just randomly pick 15 people or 100 people or 2,000 people, whatever the class size is. How would you feel about that at university?
I think if it's Harvard or something, they would definitely have to pick from the best of the best, but there's still so many of those people. And I think at that point it would be best to just do random selection, because there's so much bias in now I know a lot of colleges think they have Harvard, I think it was, they thought for a while they thought they had too many Asian people, and then they were specifically looking for different minority groups, and there's a lot of things for Black people and white people and all these different things. And I don't think race or gender, though I don't know, because it's also, you want to give opportunity to those who, I don't know.
Yeah, we run that risk with a lottery for college admissions, right? You could accidentally, right, select an all-white student population for that year, or an all-Black, or an all-Latinx, or an all-female, right? If you did go, in fact, purely just random. Elias, what did you want to contribute?
Because I remember in the podcast that they give this example that there's this shy kid, right? And he's not popular. And also was thinking, why do it in a school setting, right? Why that specific? And then I was thinking, well, wouldn't that be the best example where someone is viewed by the popularity and by people that know, especially student council? So maybe that was the condition, right? make an election that's fit to that environment because it was about popularity, right? But like when you go to a college that you actually need specific stuff
Interesting.
that, you know, that actually matters, the problem with it is that you don't know, right? Like, you're making a choice at random. Yeah, it might be the best people, but could you be sure that Ritesh wasn't better than Sophie or Sophie was better? They're the best, but who was better?
Right.
And that's not right, maybe.
Maybe student A looks the best on paper
Exactly.
their freshman year and they burn out and they drop out. Where some kid who barely squeaked in, like they find their passion and their love for whatever it is they're studying and they become like the next Einstein in that subject.
So it's like that, you just simply don't know. But I also think it's like, there's something about it. It's like, when you were in school, like, they ask a question, like, okay, majority of everybody says this, but the majority isn't always right. So I think that's why I do this process at random, because by having that uncertainty, you might land to the right choice by random, but it's not certain that you will.
Okay, so it might help the process, but it's not perfect. Ritesh, your thoughts?
I wasn't exactly sure what Ellis meant by it. One of the things he said, but he mentioned like the difference between doing a lottery on like political or like council matters versus if we're actually like getting people choosing who's getting what education at a university. I feel there should be a big difference in that because, like I said before, I'll be willing for a lottery type selection for a government position. But I feel like education is so important that it counts as a background. Like I was saying, that you needs to be a background check for a lottery stuff so you can narrow down. But one of those pieces is education, to see who has more education or who has more knowledge. I don't say education because not everyone has an equal opportunity education, so it's more knowledge in that case. So I feel like when choosing people for like universities, they should not do it by random. They should actually do it by like merit and
Good
see who has
afternoon,
worked
North
for it.
Central. This is Ms. Palacios with your
And I
transportation
feel like Ms.
update.
Palacio has been doing it wrong this whole time.
You're not a gambler anymore. You switched up.
I'm a gambler for the flip.
The country, but not for the school.
Slot 1 on the east side.
All right, guys, I'm sorry, online folks, again, we have 10 minutes left, but we've been interrupted by an endless stream of bus announcements. So, those of you at home, let me just, there were a couple things I wanted to accomplish today. We're obviously not going to get a chance to do them. When we come back together on Wednesday, we'll do that. So have a wonderful weekend. I love you very much. Enjoy the beautiful weather, those of you that are digital.
You too, Mr. Johnson.
On the west side.
You better have a good weekend.
Bus
Sir.
138 will ride bus 128, or on the west side. Again,
That was
138
awkward.
will
And then I'm
ride
looking at myself. I thought it
128,
was.
bus 4 on the west
Dang
side.
it, keep getting
Bus
cut off.
142 students today
I
will
just need
ride
to
bus
stop asking
17.
students their opinion.
Bus 14 on the west
I
side.
mean,
I know. I can't turn the speaker off though.
48 on the west side.
I was like, it's like, oh, it's fine if the country goes to get outside. I don't like college admission.
Bus 25 on the
I still have my priorities.
Also, I'm just gonna say, I think it's about how they put the voting process. Like, I think there's most of the same
Writing bus
issues.
73
But I
today.
thought your idea about like states
34 on
choosing
the
one
west side.
person was interesting because it's like
11
like
will write
whole college
73.
issue basically.
Bus 34
That everyone
on the
also
west
gets,
side.
but it's like there's no like.
Bus
perfect
87, you will be on bus 70.
Because we were always have that my whole other classes, and it's like,
Yeah,
now it's like, all students
you're
in
right.
college.
70. Slot
Like,
16
there is
on
a
the
reason
west
to
side.
it. You may not
Bus
like
105,
That's right.
you will
But there
ride
is one.
118.
I don't know if I
Slot
should share this
3
with
on the
everyone,
east
but
What's
side.
up, Ritesh?
Again, 105, slot 118, slot B on the east side. 103.
He said, I don't know if I should share this with everyone.
Okay, you want someone's vote?
I have some
Isaac?
followers.
On the west
I have
side.
some followers on my ideas.
103, right, 21, slot 30 on the west side.
Why do people
Bus
so much
78
in the face
You'll ride 125,
or so-
slot 51 on the west side.
Uh,
Again, at 78, you're gonna ride 125 today, slot 51 on the west side. Bus 101, you will ride bus 68, slot 15 on the east side. Again, that's 101, riding 68.
Sorry, one more time. I was trying to follow, but
slot 15 on the east side. Bus 18 students, today you will ride 72,
Majority
slot
of people
52
still making this
on the
video.
west side. 18, you are riding 72, slot 52.
it's a great question, Isaac. So why are we still doing the things that we're doing if they might not be great? And the answer is because they haven't been to TOK class.
Sure.
They haven't been asked to think about alternatives and options. I mean, think about it. Before yesterday or 2 days ago, you probably never thought about the idea of electing the student counselor, choosing the student council by random draw. Like that would never have occurred to you, right? And that's the beauty of having a safe space to think outside the box and ask these kinds of questions. And that's why the diploma program, I think is so important for you, because you guys are going to be our next leaders. I mean, I'm looking at a room full of business leaders, academics, scientists, politicians. That's who you guys are going to be, believe it or not. And so I want you guys walking around the world thinking about these different kinds of questions.
Will you tell us our political standing as a
Yeah.
class? I mean, I think-
Yes, I'll show you. It's kind of, I'll show the rest of the crew.